Hey guys, so in part two, Chris and I discuss in a little bit more detail different types of evangelism, our different perspectives on the approach and the method of evangelism. It's a little bit more back and forth. We've got differences of opinion here and there. But if you get value out of Chris's content, if you subscribe to Chris and you watch his videos regularly, why don't you go to Chris's channel and donate to his channel? He needs a new microphone. Go and help him out. Don't be stingy, right? Like, we can all need a little bit of help in this day and age, especially if you're getting value from Chris's content. Thanks a lot, guys. I hope you enjoy part two.
When I became a Christian at the age of 17, I immediately started reading books and wanting to learn how to prove my faith because everyone that I was associated with was not Christian. And many of them were even hostile to Christianity. And I wanted to, in effect, defend myself against the claims they were making. So I was reading tons of things. Eventually, I got into apologetics to try and make people more aware of how they can defend their faith. But something changed, and I got into ministering to Muslims later on in life. But yeah, originally I did start probably in a very similar position to you, but I sort of shifted to Muslims now.
They're not going to. I mean, they're not going to come with that rigor, because obviously the Muslim background, they've got the family, they've got the culture. As you said, if they become Christian, they're leaving a lot behind. Them thinking that their religion is wrong is devastating. If an atheist thinks they're wrong, most of the time it's devastating. But not coming from a Hindu or a Buddhist. I mean, I can only feel what it must be like to come to Christ, leaving everything behind.
Just a little bit to this.
Sure.
We do see people become Christians at Speaker's Corner. What actually happens a lot of the time is people make this decision at home, which is what we prefer, because I don't like the idea that someone comes to Speaker's Corner and be's there for a few hours and then becomes a Christian. I find that not the best way to do things. But to go to go home, ideally to go through some sort of catechism, to learn about the faith, to understand it, so they have they know what the gospel, right? They know what they are affirming. And then they come to us afterwards and they say, "Hey, Chris," or "Hey, Bob," or "Hey, whoever, I just want to let you know I've become a Christian now." And most of the time, like 90%, this is off camera because it's a very personal decision and people don't want to publicize this. And a lot of times, if they were ex-Muslims, they've got even more of a reason not to make that public. And a lot of the time we have fellowship after Speaker's Corner as well. So there are things that are a lot more traditionally evangelical, I guess, like, traditional evangelism that you don't see. It's just that Speaker's Corner, also has the big crowds and lots of yelling. So it's a mixed bag, really. But I can see why people wouldn't like the yelling and the screaming and the egos that seem to come with that.
Baptist background for us, it's outreach, it's getting the gospel to those that want to hear it, and then shaking the dust off your feet for those that don't. When Christ said, get passed off to the next city, like if you get booted out, you move. Christ's vision, I believe, from what I read on the scripture, is you need to get to the people that want to hear it. There's so many people out there that can't hear it, and just doing this Jewish thing in the book of Acts, where you kind of stay. Like for me, I feel passionate about going to the Greek Orthodox and saying, look, this is what I disagree with, because I have that background and now I'm a Baptist, right? So, so you want to be in your tribe and that. But what I love about the Baptist movement is we try to have this sort of outward mission where we want to be farmers, we want to plant the seed, and we want to deliver the gospel to get to those that want to hear it. There's only so many laborers that's knocking on doors and getting to those people that need to hear it. Is sort of where we come from, and I guess what we big in our particular church. So, I mean, I don't want to see an armored D-Dad type confuse the Christian that was in my spot. So, hearing all this Dawa tricks or these Muslims sort of use these sort of, where did Jesus say, I am God, worship me? John, he says, I am the Son of God. Before Abraham was, I am. If you know anything about Scripture, I am is a reference to the I am. In the burning bush that you guys believe in, God says, I am that I am.
This is like a speaker's corner, somewhat, right? You go there, you don't know who you're going to meet. You don't know what questions are going to be asked to you. So I very much like this kind of chat, and it's a pleasure to be here and to have that with you. It's the same as speakers. Like, I've met people that are like, hey, is this really the most effective way of reaching others? What are people's real intentions here? And those are fair questions. And the issue that you always have is when you decide to have a ministry that is predominantly online, you now have an issue because you're also tied to views, right? You need to get views. That's a measure of success. But of course, how you do that, you're always under a lot of pressure to compromise on your character. And to be honest with you, this is what I think Ali Dawah and Ahmadiyya did. They compromised on their character. They became caricatures because it helps their brand and it helps them reach more people. So it is something that I talk about quite a bit, actually, the importance of keeping your character. You can lose a debate and the next week you can come back. But if you lose your character and you make yourself foolish, you make yourself someone who's egotistical, narcissistic, then that's it, really, from my point of view. You need to go home and work on yourself, because you can't really be sharing the gospel and also have that kind of state of mind. It's always a struggle for us to be humble. I mean, I'm lucky that I'm surrounded by a group of people that do keep me humble, that do sort of scrutinize me and say, what are you doing? How are you going to do it? What does success look like? And what are you going to make sure that you don't do? And these kind of questions. So, yeah, it is a challenge. But I think there are genuinely good, sincere people at Speaker's Corner who do preach the gospel. There are, of course, people that I think have fallen or made errors or perhaps been affected by it in ways they shouldn't have been. But generally speaking, the people that we evangelize with, which is a sort of non-denominational team of Christians, I think do quite well. So that's kind of my perspective on that.
The debate between Muhammad Hijab and David Wood, I mean, that reached millions.
Yeah.
But it reached people. If you were on the Christian side, you're on the Christian side. If you're on the Muslim side, you could hear it in the background every time Muhammad Hijab thought he had a gotcha moment, and
the crowds roar and
the crowds roar. It's just bravado. For me, what I need to do is I need to go get people one-on-one and face them without the ego, without the bravado, without the just this showmanship, essentially. Because you can understand as men, right? We don't want to be showed up. It's ego. None of us do, right? And we know Christianity, Jesus Christ, the way, the truth, and the life. If we're going to boast in anything, we're boasting here. So, but yeah, for me, the 2x2 out knocking doors. I want to be able to face people without the feeling of the pressure and the I'm on camera. Like you said, there's a lot of conversations that happen, and I'm not necessarily just picking on Speaker's Corner. It happens on YouTube, right? Like it's about getting in front of the people to spread the gospel in a way that is as least confrontational for them as possible. And that's how I see it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree with that. I do think there is a place for sort of online ministry as well, because it sets an understanding that there is a culture. I mean, okay, so one of the problems I think Christianity has at the moment is people aren't aware that there are communities that will help you, that will give you fellowship, that will encourage you spiritually, and that this is a part of what it means to be, for example, English or Australian, or you can have your culture and you can have Christianity and you can have a community that embodies those. The issue, I think, is when we just focus on just private conversations, it's hard to really show people that this culture exists, because in effect, it's kind of all offline. It's happening on a personal basis, which is great and does need to happen. But I think there also needs to be that side that says, actually, we really are a community. There really is a Christian community in wherever you live, and you can be a part of that. And a way that you get people to take the first step to be a part of it is as simple as just having a positive opinion about what they saw. It's very easy to go online and just see tons of Islamic stuff and get the impression that the only real viable community is the Islamic one. That's very convincing for a lot of people. They think, wow, I can get identity, I can have a community, I can have a family, I can have all these things. Well, there needs to be a Christian equivalent that says, actually, we also offer this, and we offer this with truth. It's not just bravado, it's not just ego, it's not just quite obvious full scriptures, but rather we can offer you the truth. And
Correct.
I think there is a space for that as well.
I agree with you 100%. Where I disagree is on the method of doing it. So, for example, with our church, I'm a digital marketer. I'm like, Pastor, you got to get on YouTube video. You got to get on Facebook ads. We know who our community. We do barbecues and we do outreach, and we got a heavily Muslim population. We've got a heavily Hindu population. We try to spread the gospel to them and try to talk with them in various social settings. But we got to use, and this is coming from a digital marketer, we have to use the tools of online to reach them, to evangelize to them. But in terms of, hey, look, there's a fellowship here, there's a community here, there's a church here, there's the local church, there's the pastor. What does that even mean? It means he's a shepherd. It means we look after the flock. You come with us, you'll be taken care of. And I agree with everything you just said. Like, I couldn't agree with it more. I try to be a part of it in my local church. I try to push it with Facebook advertising and be like, hey, look, we've got $50 this week from church into tithing. Let's use it to raise the awareness. People are on their phones all day, every single day in my community. They're on their phones. Let's spread the gospel to them. So let's show them that we go to barbecues, we do community things, we do outreach, we do fellowship, we give to the poor. We show that this exists in the local church, as I believe, as Christ would want it to be shared and to be.
Yeah. So just you might I don't know how big your barbecues are, for example, but you might have 10, 20 people who take note of that, right? But if it's filmed and you put it online and you have that presence, you can get 1,000 people who are aware that you're doing that. And that obviously has a much wider impact. But again, I feel like I'm somewhat preaching to the choir, because as a digital marketer, you obviously already know this, all this sort of stuff.
This is why, Chris, I feel so the way that I do, because I'm like, this is just all marketing and branding, and it works. If you want to be a marketer, what you guys are doing at Speaker's Corner is going to build your brand. It is going to do the things that you want it to do.
But I call myself Chris because I want the most generic name that is not my actual name because I came to Speaker's Corner with this idea that I don't want it to be about me. It's not about me at all. It really has nothing to do with
about Jesus Christ.
It has everything to do with what the message that I'm telling you of the gospel. So I tried everything to remove myself from this. Practically speaking, that's actually very difficult because people recognize you and they like what you do and they get involved because of the fact it's all social media. They get involved in the character.
You've got 18,000 subs. They're going to find out who you are now.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is what it is. But I mean, ultimately, I have to sort of work within that paradigm to get the gospel there. I try and not to make it about me. I try and remove myself as much as possible. People will give me compliments and I try and sort of dumb them down. I'm like, look, not really. Like, I'm just a guy, I just come here. That's all I do. Really, it's everything with what I'm saying about this wonderful Lord that is Jesus, not this random guy called Chris that you met at a corner, But yeah, so you're right. Like, it's difficult. It's difficult to toe that line. I think you can. And really, I mean, for me, it's the emails I get. It's the messages, it's the comments I get where people say, they talk about how they're now accepting Christianity and they're now considering or becoming a Christian. It's amazing. That to me is everything. Like, I see that comment, or someone comes at the corner and says to me, "Hey, Chris, you know what? I was an atheist. I was an atheist for 20, 30 years. But thanks to all these videos and stuff, I'm now a Christian. I'm like, amazing. That makes my day, in all honesty. And I tell people that it makes my day that they've become a Christian. That's it. And like I said, I was just a small step. That's all I was. But I know that the videos do work and they do have an effect. Yeah. And that to me is everything.
Absolutely. And there's nothing that I could do. I can win a client with my digital marketing business for $20,000 a month, or I could get someone at my church that comes up to me and that says, "Hey, thanks for helping me achieve this." Well, thank you for helping me do that. And the feelings, thank you for making me get closer to God. Thank you for praying for me. The feeling is incomprehensibly, indescribably, far greater than me winning some stupid deal for business. It's just it's fails in comparison. Or someone coming up to us at our barbecues or at our outreach initiatives, and totally, people are going to want to watch controversy, Chris. If you want to know if you want to hear the zeitgeist, I can tell you because I study it. This is what I do for a living. People are going to want to watch controversy. People are going to want to watch debate. It's going to work. It's just for Christians. Are we building brands, or are we building hearts? You see, so that's and the only reason that I come at it the way that I do is because I see between, like, I'm not even talking about you, even, like, let's say with Mohammed Hijab and Ali Dawes. I just don't want us to go down that route.
Oh, absolutely.
And you could say that their road is effective too, right? But I still don't want us down that because we've lost something.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think if you compromise on yourself, that's it. Like it's over now. Like because then it's you. Then it's all about you, and then I think you need to get out basically because something's gone wrong somewhere. And Ali Dawah and Mohammed Hijab, I think are good cases of that. I'm pretty sure there are probably Christian cases of that, unfortunately, as well. I think though that there is a way and that you can have, I don't know, I really don't like thinking of it this way because it sounds very commercial, but a brand and an active ministry that does outreach. I think you can have those things. I think one, unfortunately, in the online age kind of comes with the other. I wish it didn't have to be that way. I wish that I could just get on camera in the most basic sense with like my phone, talk about the gospel to Muslims, and that would be it, and that would get me all the views. And but unfortunately, that's not the world we live in. And unfortunately, I've got to also do other things to get people to watch, to then give them the message. And yeah, I find it very difficult. Like I find it very hard to always reconcile. It's because it feels like commercial things, and I don't like that. I mean, so for example, my channel isn't monetized. Well, it's technically monetized now in that people can give me things, like people can donate to me if they want to. But for a long time, even that wasn't on. There are no ads on my videos. I recently only just started accepting donations through Buy Me a Coffee, which is like a website people can donate to you. And that's because basically this microphone is terrible and is slowly dying, and I need a new microphone. But I mean, that's this year.
Let me buy you one for coming on this podcast.
No. No. But like, it took me a long time to even allow that because I was so worried that if I go down that path, I'm allowing more of me and less of something else. And I always contrasted it in that way, and it always worried me. I thought, well, I had this pride thing of I'm self-funded and I like being self-funded, so I'll just continue doing that. But ultimately, I don't think that's healthy. I think that you do have to accept that maybe you do need help at some points. And yeah, I like, after having lots of conversations with family, with Christians at my church and so on, I thought, yeah, I probably should just let go of that and say, okay, fine. If people want to donate, they can donate. But yeah, I'm still not going to put ads on my videos. I don't like that. I think that's, for me, it's like a personal thing, but it seems too commercial for me. just for how I see it.
Yeah, right. Well, the church I'm a part of, like, we're a non-for-profit, and for me, I just say, well, who says we have to be a non-for-profit, right? Like, we can be for profit, but we're about Jesus is profiting the gospel, right?
Yeah. Well, this is
as
what
long
a
as
lot of people have said to me. You know, a lot of people have advocated saying, no, Chris, you should do that because there are going to be expenses that you're going to hit down the line that you need to cover. And if you don't have that prepared, you're not going to be able to make events. You're not going to be able to travel. I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But, you know,
I mean, for me to give money to a Baptist ministry minister to go overseas to Africa to spread the gospel, for me to give him money is not giving him money; it's giving the kingdom the investment, right? So that's the way I see it in terms of within my community. Anyway.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've sort of reluctantly come to accept that. I guess it's not that I intellectually disagree with it. I do agree that that's correct. It's just I don't know. Things get funny when money is involved. You know, like
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
It's
and you don't want to come across as you're just doing it for the coin. You know,
exactly right. Because I mean, that's always an accusation that people will make it to you. Like, you know, oh, you're asking for money, or you're, you know, you only do this for the money. You know, it's funny. One of the biggest things that criticisms that Muslims give us at Speaker's Corner is you're only doing it for the money, which is kind of funny because I'm just going to be honest with you. I lose money doing what I do. I'm very much in the negative. Everything I do is funded by me, and I'm happy losing that every month. I have no problem because for me, the intent is the gospel. I don't care if I lose money. Well, what I get out of it, like in terms of knowing that I've spent the gospel, is more than enough for me. But yeah, you know, people still think that we're somehow, you know, people even say things like, "Oh, you're paid by the Jews." All these silly accusations, and I think the reason why is because all their channels are monetized, all their stuff that they do is primarily about making money. And of course, you can say, well, you know, they've got to make a living, sure, you know, but
I see there's a problem is where's your heart? What's the gospel message? Why are you doing? And ultimately, the Muslims aren't going to be your judge. God is.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah, absolutely.
And so, like, to separate yourself from, if you're going to be dictated by people's opinions, I even told my wife this with her sort of situation. She said, you're going to be dictated by people's opinions and not God's opinion. Not even, forget my opinion. Even my opinion, it's God's opinion. If I tell you something, God tells you something. You follow God. In my heart, I'm pierced with getting into heaven and God saying, this was your harvest. You know why you got saved at 16? To do this much. You did this much. And I guess that's personally what keeps me up at night. And yeah, and not being able to do it.
I mean, there's a way of looking at that. I think the sacred and the secular often mix. And I don't think the Christian message is just to appeal to the sacred. So there are people that can live very normal lives. You know, you could be a farmer somewhere, but you can be a farmer in a godly way. You can be a farmer in a way that honors God. With your own life, you can preach the love of Christ, and you can, you know, give a reason for the hope that you have when you're challenged by people around you. And you can do that in very secular contexts. You know, you don't have to. You could be a long way away from a physical church building and still give the gospel primarily through your behavior. I find that the way that we act is often the best way of at least getting people to ask about the gospel. So, in all honesty, just the way that I've seen things through my own personal life, and this is away from Speaker's Corner, but if you, so for example, I've for the last year or so, I've taken the idea of Lent quite seriously, and I've taken Advent and fasting during these times. And one thing I notice is people recognize, without me having to do anything, that I've changed my behavior. I'm not eating what I would normally eat and so on. And they ask me why I'm doing that. And I get a perfect opportunity that they themselves asked for to tell them about the gospel. And people respect those that act out what they believe and they see it. It's a bit like there's a whole difference between someone telling someone, hey, I have loads of money, I'm super rich, I have a really nice car, and someone discovering they have a really nice car, but they see it with their own eyes. They weren't told about it in advance, because as soon as someone tells you about these things, you're like, oh, well, you're bragging, you know, you're you know what I mean? But when you see something for yourself, you're like, oh, wow, you know, he didn't tell me about that, but I see that.
We kind of call that in the Baptist circles like a lifestyle evangelism.
Yeah, yeah, and I think there is a real. I mean, I think also it's powerful because again, it comes back to community. Like, oh wow, there actually are Christians who do X, Y, and Z. Oh wow, like that's interesting, and I can see it in my own eyes.
I would direct people if I'm talking to a Muslim, and I've had Muslim friendships, and again, if I'm chatting the gospel with them, we've all fallen short to the glory of God. That Christians aren't doing this, and Christians are drinking, and I said, well, first of all, I don't know if Christians are drinking. I don't know if Christians are smoking pot. I don't know necessarily in this context of this discussion. What I want to point you to is the gospel, right? And what's important for us is we acknowledge that we've all fallen short to the glory of God. And that if you're going to put your faith in Christ because of us, you're going to fall over and you're going to reject it eventually. You're going to put your faith in Christ because of Christ, not because of Christians. It's like that was a Gandhi that said, I would be a Christian if it wasn't for Christians. That to me is the biggest crap cop-out I've ever heard in my life. So to me, it's pointing them to Christ, not to us. Like, it's good if they see us as a good example. Yeah.
I think you mentioned earlier, like fallen nature. I think in some sense, for my story anyway, it was realizing the inability of myself to save myself. In other words, there is something flawed with me that fundamentally I also see in others. So my family can't save me. I can't save me. Ideology can't save me. Ultimately, it's Christ that saves you. But I think in a sense that requires two things. One, you accept you cannot save yourself. And also others can't save you. There is something fundamentally flawed with human nature that stops that. But Christ is the one who can and does save you. And you're completely right. And I think Gandhi was just well known for teasing Christians, basically, by coming up with these little slogans. When in reality, Gandhi was the last person who should be saying that.
I mean, for me, if I was in Speaker's Corner, Chris, I think I'd go nuts after 3 days.
Like, if you end up accidentally talking to some of these Dai guys, you'd probably hate it. If you because they will mock and ridicule and everything goes online is negative, and we have to explain this to people. We have to say, look, if you're new at Speaker's Corner and you get swarmed by cameras, leave. Do not stay there and think that you can do a good job defending it, because if there's no Christian camera, if it is just Muslim cameras, all that's going to happen is you're going to be ridiculed, mocked, and blasted online, and we don't want that happening to anyone. And sadly, the message that you're trying to convey will be skewed. So it's sort of like a lose-lose situation there. But if you have conversations, with some people who are sincere, and to be honest with you, there aren't that many people who are sincere. You do see them. Last week at Speaker's Corner, I met a guy who was Muslim who was a genuine, sincere listener who let me talk about things, and I was amazed actually at some of the things he was saying. Because he was so open. He even accepted just direct criticism of his faith, and I contrasted it with the gospel. I basically said that in Islam there is no love of the unbelievers, but in Christianity, in the gospel, there is love of all people. And he went, well, yeah, I guess if there is a God, he would be loving to everyone. I was like, wow, a Muslim said that. Wow. And that was a beautiful conversation. But these are fairly rare. Because
see, Chris, that would be an example what I would tell you. That's the difference. That's what we're looking for. I find that it can be easy to talk to. In my experience, have been Muslims, because you can kind of use the whole certain aspects of common ground, but then realize that we just go in two different directions at some point.
I used to think very much that, in that sense, that there is, you're here for a reason. You're a Christian. You were made a Christian in a sense. You were brought through the Holy Spirit into the fold of Christ. Therefore, you need to go and proclaim the gospel to all. You need to be speaking about it. You need to do all these things. I think that's right, but I think that we sometimes misunderstand what that might look like. So you can be a man who has a family, has kids, has a wife. You are already in a position where you can bring in more people than just you, which is just one person, into the fold of Christ. If you raise a godly family, you're already bringing in, the harvest is tenfold oil. You're already bringing in a lot more than just you. There are ways that you can do this that don't look like traditional evangelism. I mean, just looking after your family is a form of preaching the gospel.
Oh, right. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already liked and subscribed to It's Andy G, please do so. I would really appreciate it. Like, comment, share. and I'll see you in the next video.